The Center for Energy Workforce Development was established about 5 years ago. And we got together based on the need that we saw utilities and energy companies off doing their own thing. We all had the same issue, which is we have a workforce that's aging, and we know that we're going to lose a lot over the next 10 years. So everyone was doing and creating their own programs, and we said, you know what? 2 heads are better than 1. Why don't we pull everybody together and try to establish a consortia of utilities and share best practices. We have about 73 member companies that are part of our consortia that we work with. And the foundation is all around sharing best practices and what we do, and how can we effectively together get to a better place, because we're all fighting for the same talent and we all have the same issues. 50% of utility energy workers are going to retire within 5 years. Workforce development efforts must create value for 3 stakeholders. The value is to all 3 of these. So students, college credit, and part of that initiative is also to take apprenticeship programs and give them college credit, okay, so that they do have college credit. Tailored support, so very specific support for the students or the audience, the group that you're targeting. Stackable credentials, so that they're continuously learning, growing, and the more value there is to industry. Educators, you're going to understand clear expectations. What does industry need so that my programs meet their needs and the students are hired? Because if I'm pulling out getting students to graduate and I'm not meeting the needs, and it's not aligned with what the organizations want and what they need, industry needs, they're not going to be hired. And sustainable programs, because now you've got this partnership that they'll tell you, stop, we need to make a shift. There's a shift coming down the pike. And then employers, flexible workforce, we get qualified workforce, because as all of you know, and in industry, in energy, we can't get students to pass our pre-employment test. That's a big issue. Across nationwide, it's about a 50% pass rate. So you got 100 people taking the test, 50 make it. And then by the time you screen them for drugs, background check, you lose a whole bunch of them. And then you interview, and they can't interview, they can't communicate. And you lose a whole bunch of them. By the time you get 100 in, you've got 10 at the end that might be qualified candidates. Here's our competency model. Everything is based on our competency model. And so you'll see Tier 1 is personal effectiveness, academic requirements, Tier 2, workplace requirements, Tier 3. Those are the fundamental basic skills. And I would venture to say that those 3 tiers are not specific to just the energy industry. So if you look at the manufacturing competency model, it's almost identical in those 3 tiers to this one. Construction has something very similar. Tier 4 and 5 are industry specific, and we start getting into industry-wide. And then Tier 6 through 8 are occupational specific. So if you think about the green jobs are Tier 6 through 8. All right? So students going into green jobs need to have these foundational skills, because if they don't, what ends up happening at the end is they're not going to be able to move and progress within the industry. Here's the assessments. They do NCRC, WorkKeys is one of the assessments that we and an employability skills assessment is another one. Those are the 2 credentials that they will receive. The employability skills assessment is issued by Skills USA. It's a valid assessment that exists currently, and what we've done is we've tweaked it and modified it to include some technical and engineering skills into the employability skills assessment. So it's very specific to our industry. So here, how do those credentials link to our competency model? Because we've done that. So Tier 1, 2, and 3 is measured by the WorkKeys at the silver level. We've done the mapping. And then the energy industry employability skills map directly to the competencies listed in Tiers 1, 2, and 3. The competency model has been validated by our industry partners. They developed it, they validated it, and so those credentials will demonstrate that those students have the level of skill required to work in the industry.
We have been at work on building the workforce for energy efficiency related to the built environment. The first step in our process was assessing both supply and demand. And our efforts started back in 2008. First place we go to is to look at labor market data. What are the growth projections for the jobs that relate to energy efficiency? We conducted employer surveys, and we also convened industry panels. So we developed basically 6 clusters of occupations related to energy efficiency. We felt that where we needed to invest our resources were in 4 of these areas: energy assessment, building operations, the trades, and the energy services contracting arena. So once we had assessed demand and where we felt we should be investing our resources, the next step, and next slide, is the process of how do we balance supply and demand through training. So there are 3 steps that we took, and they resulted in our either applying for or being a partner in 3 applications for the DOL Green Job grants that were being released. So we first built a training partnership, local for a couple of the grants and regional for 2. And those partnerships include business, labor, WDCs, community colleges, and private training providers as well, and community-based organizations. So a very broad partnership for each. We targeted who we would train, and we looked at what jobs we would train for and whether we would use existing curricula on the shelf or develop new. Once the training is completed, how do we connect our trained supply of graduates with demand? And as we all know, that is the very toughest nut to crack right now. Demand fell rapidly after these grants were written. And the recovery has been much slower than all of us hoped. Originally, projections were recovery in 2011. In construction, we're now looking out to 2013. So what do you do in the meantime? Well, we're connecting people certainly to employers in the energy efficiency field. We're also finding that we need to find people survival jobs until things open up. Or related jobs if at all possible, so that they might get close to their end result and then be able to move to it as the economy recovers. So we have to get a little creative at this point. Several techniques that we're using. We do have a Green Jobs Navigator in King County who is pushing out any job vacancy information out to all of our partners. We have a wonderful labor liaison who is with us in the room, Joan Weiss, who is keeping us aware of apprenticeship opportunities as those open up, and again, pushing that information out to all of the partners. And lastly, I just wanted to mention, as far as connecting, the WDC in this last year did launch a Map Your Career website, which presents job information by sector, and there is a Green Jobs portion of the website. So as things do recover, we wanted a facility to keep people aware of jobs in the sector and kind of keep filling the pipeline as we move forward. When we do assess demand, we have got to have the employers leading the table so that they're able to clearly say this is what we need and the skills we need and when we're going to need them. And we strongly support, completely believe in industry-based curriculum content. And I think this is a continuing learning point where we think we've got it, we think we're incorporating the right skills in the training. The graduates go out and get a job, and the employers give us feedback. Oh, they didn't know this, they didn't get this, they couldn't really hit the ground running. So then we have to go back and tweak the curricula. We also get employer feedback that people have learned, they understand the terminology, the concepts, but they can't necessarily come in and do certain skills when they get on the job. So anything more that we can do in our training to incorporate hands-on projects that maybe can be captured in a portfolio, something that shows the employer that this person can do the work from day one. And so we're very excited to be doing this, and challenges are opportunities, right? So we're very happy to be part of the process. And that kind of sums it up for us, that we assess, we balance, we connect, and we keep learning.
So I'm with Gonzaga University's T&D program, and what happened was about 6 years ago, industry came to Gonzaga and said they were starting to see the numbers that we saw earlier about 16,000 engineering jobs needed, and they said we have a real concern that we need to recruit more engineers into industry, and then there's this looming need that as the huge wave of experienced engineers are retiring or overworked, there's not going to be anyone to train them. So Department of Energy kicked in some money thanks to Senators Cantwell and Murray, and we created the T&D Graduate Certificate Program. We ended up with 12 courses, and we realized a couple years ago that, well, this is crazy. We're going to end up with close to a master's. So we started the approval process through Gonzaga. And so we ended up working through the about 18-month process at Gonzaga, and then this spring in April we were given formal approval. We went through the several committees at Gonzaga and the faculty and the Board of Trustees all the way up to our accreditation body, and we were given approval for a master's degree in T&D engineering. So here we have this level, graduate program, and that's great, but they came to us and said, you need a system operator training facility. And Peter and I looked at each other and went, what's system operations? And so Peter found Warren Maxfield from Avista and said, well, okay, what is it, and what's the cool, what would a cool training facility look like? And so Warren helped us develop the system operator training facility, and the point was to be able to offer trainings at Gonzaga that were more for, the region, and we brought in an outside vendor for a couple of years, and we offered the NERC certified trainings, and that was great. But we started hearing, we actually kind of started having fun with the ZagOps. Peter called it the Gonzaga University Power System Operator Simulator Training Facility, and I looked at him and said, it's not even going to fit on the door, it needs to be ZagOps. So ZagOps has been really kind of a fun process for us. And one of the things we heard from industry was, it's great, we come in and we train on a generic system, but geez, it would be so cool if we could train on our system. And so Peter worked with Robin Podmore from Incremental Systems and the Power for Vets, and they've developed a training that we had last fall. The first trainings went through on our Northwest grid. We had BPA and Chelan and Grant County folks come in and train on their own grid and do emergency conditions and black start restoration, all those things on their own grid, which was really exciting. And then we went back and thought, we went to industry and said, okay, what next? We've got this cool room, and really it's, it's funded by public funding, and what would your dream be? And Troy Nutter and Warren and some other folks said, there's a gap, a disconnect, not only with the engineers and system operators, but with plant operators and apprenticeship students, of not being able to see the grid, and of, you're working on a windmill and you're keeping it online, but you don't know how it affects the rest of the grid. And so working with Larry, we developed a 6-hour training. It started out, it was a 2-hour training and then a 4-hour training, and the kids kept saying, we want more, and so now it's a 6-hour training, which means, and we offer this for free currently, knock on wood, and so what that means is, like, Tom's kids will get up at 3 in the morning, get on a bus down in the Dalles, drive up to Gonzaga, spend 6 hours on the training, and we'll throw pizza at them in the middle, and they won't even leave their stations, they just keep working. And then they get back on the bus and go back home, and it's a long day, and we give them a little certificate saying that they went through the 6-hour training. And it's just been a blast for us. So some of the things that we've learned as a takeaway is that, none of that really fits with Gonzaga's box. None of that really matches what Gonzaga, and certainly a master's degree program at Gonzaga, would do. But in that wonderful relationship with Avista, of being able to have that honest rapport of, okay, well, we've got the darn thing built, what would you do with it? And then say, okay, will you help us figure out how to do that? And that is huge for us. We'd still be back, following the basic plan from years ago if we didn't have that industry input. So that's huge for us. And then also we're really lucky that we had a university president that this program was kind of his baby, and he just retired, but he was always like, yeah, it's all good. And we're like, we're doing these trainings, we're not making any money. Yeah, it's all good, because he was a Jesuit, so it was all good. So we don't have a Jesuit in anymore. We might have to kind of fly under the radar for a while. But that has been really nice to have that support at Gonzaga to say, well, yeah, it is kind of a weird fit, but you guys are, you're bringing in people and convincing them to, make a stronger power grid in 10 or 20 years, and that is for the good of the community.